Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and joining me for this segment is Joyce, Clarke, and John Epps. And what we're going to be talking about really is the work that's going on with TIPS IE, and we want to bring a little bit more insight to the impact that our work is having with regards to our community health and some other sociological subjects. So I want to start off speaking with Joyce. And Joyce Clarke is a 20-year freelance grant writer specializing in education and the arts. She's also a researcher in this space. Currently, she's monitoring trends, changes, a lot of the really forces that are interesting in the state of California right now, particularly concerning COVID-19. Joyce, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, John. I'm sorry. Thank you, Glenn. I'm a little nervous right now.
No worries, no worries. I'll answer to John, and then John will have to answer to himself when we get to him as well. But as you're looking at this, we're in a situation, there's the virus is here. It's changing the way we do work, the way we live day to day. What kind of news, what kind of insight are you getting through the research that you do?
Well, I think the facts outlined by the Governor Newsom on May 4th, he gave us some encouraging news, yet caution and thoughtfulness are wrapped up in it. And people are glad to hear that some areas are going to open up, but he outlined that phase one has been accomplished. Workforce is secure. However, there are some really strong guidelines that he's expecting to put in place so that the workforce and residents are safe. Doesn't want a resurgence of cases. There has been a flattening of the curve, but families are still suffering loss every day, whether they're in ICU or self-quarantine. Still more positive cases are surfacing all over the United States, not just California. So some of the businesses that are going to open up starting somewhere around the 10th of May are going to be curbside pickup that's related to manufacturing, supply chains like bookstores, clothing stores, florists, and sporting goods stores, where you can control the distancing, the masks, and the crowds.
Wow. So I guess my follow-up question would be, what are the most recent facts and steps from the California governor, Governor Newsom, on reentry?
Well, he's really looking at how people can stay safe while these cases continue. And he's said that the local municipalities can do some, I guess I would say, self-certification is the way he put it, that they can look at how their city operates and maybe either tighten or weaken some of those openings that he's talked about. They still have to have guidelines.
So with regards to those kind of stipulations, the guidelines, what stores cannot open yet?
Those are the stores that will cause the greatest risk of a setback. Malls, my favorite. Seating in restaurants, another of my favorite, all of us actually, and returning to the workplace. And concerts, areas that will cause the most harm. I will do a sidebar here and say that in today's press enterprise, Disney is losing $1 billion almost a day. So they are reopening their Shanghai Disney World. And we will see what the impact of that will be very, very shortly. But these are the things the governor's put in place. Again, local jurisdictions can ease these, tighten these, or have some kind of wiggle room, but they have to keep the best interests of the constituency as they open these places.
That is utterly fascinating. $1 billion a day.
Yes.
Wow. So what is your personal perspective on moving forward? especially considering you follow this so closely?
That for everyone, just everyone, to exercise a level of patience that has never been called on before. We are living in an instant gratification society. And for these through these past few decades, it really has eroded our patience meter. But these are uncertain and unprecedented times that call for new ways of doing things. You know, Glenn, honestly, we are slowly emerging from under this virus, but it's still circulating. So there will have to be some post-COVID ways of conducting business and our lives. And we have to be thinking about those right now. I predict that masks and gloves and social distancing may be with us in certain areas through 2021, and that chain stores that we thought was solvent will file for bankruptcy. That workers will really have to learn new skills, new technology in the marketplace that calls for heightened measures in health fields and in safety items. Remember 9/11, we had to adjust. Well, we have to make the same adjustments again. Only this time we are battling an unseen, unheard, unscented, invasive feeling enemy that man has no control over. Our weapon of victory is going to be us staying in this together.
So to bring it more facts oriented, what are the most recent numbers of infections and deaths in the United States as of today that can be attributed to the coronavirus?
It is sad for me to report that and thank you, Glenn, in today's paper, the Press Enterprise, Johns Hopkins University brought out these numbers. Infectious disease or this virus is exceeding 20,000 per day in the US, and deaths across the US are exceeding 1,000 per day.
That is a lot to get your arms around. I mean, these are Americans we're talking about. So what are some of the states that are demonstrating the highest numbers?
Besides New York, which was taken out of the equation because unfortunately they are the hardest hit, we're looking at Kansas, Iowa, New Jersey, New Mexico, and for California, the numbers are still climbing. And they're not numbers, they're people, they're families torn asunder who will just no longer be a part of that family because of this virus. We have got to rethink how we are doing things to get out of this virus situation.
So looking at that data set, what are the common trends?
The common trends really are people protesting and then getting what I call a crowd think, following the crowd without really digging deeper into the research and how it's affecting other people. The common trends that we're seeing is people having cabin fever, people ready to go back to work. But I know that the mindset has to change in order to mitigate these trends that we are seeing.
So let me shift gears and point this question to John, because it seems like there's sort of a mental transition that's resulting from this data. So John, if we want to avoid all of this, what kind of mindset do we need?
Well, thank you, Joyce, for those numbers. You know, one of the toughest things in the current situation is that we have to be patient, we have to be responsible, and we have to think about others. I have seen a growing need for compassion among people. One of the things that I do as a coach, I work with organizations and individuals to try to help them think not so much about how we get back to where we were, but how this can be, instead of being viewed as a setback, we can see this as a setup, and that we could use this as an opportunity to correct and improve our operations, to build up our own personal skills, so that when we go back, we are better equipped and we have a better sense of how to create the future we really want. So I think if you are looking at this as a lockdown, instead of looking at this as an opportunity to recalibrate and reset ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, in terms of the skill sets that we have, then we can endure this better. One of the things that I recently looked at was an article from the gentleman who was the commandant at the old Hanoi Hilton back in the 70s. And the Hanoi Hilton was a POW camp where many American officers were incarcerated. And what happened was people who were in the camp who survived, somebody asked what happened, and the commandant said the optimists were not the survivors, because what they would say is, well, by Easter we'll be out, or by Christmas we'll be out. The people who survived were the ones who says this too will pass, that we will go back home someday. It is that enduring patience that we really need. We need to recognize that we don't serve ourselves well by trying to create or force things to happen. What we really serve ourselves well is through acceptance of the fact that this is a little inconvenient, but at the same time, I've never spent as much time with my family. I've never spent as much time reading and having an opportunity to learn new skills. I've never had a chance to just sit back and relax and enjoy. I think it's just that mindset of, are we willing and ready to go deeper into who we are and what we want to be going forward? A lot of people just want to get back to normal. I don't think that there's a normal that we'll get back to, Glenn.
Wow. As you're talking through that emotional leap that has to occur in order for survival, we kind of look at it from an American perspective. That's a bit of a challenge, because we are so results oriented, and this will happen in this particular time frame. So, it creates a little bit of a challenge that we would have to adjust, again, the way we perceive the world in order to get through this particular, this pandemic. My question is, what will motivate people to adjust to that mindset?
Years ago, I used to listen to a gentleman named Leo Buscaglia. And what Leo said, I have a quote that says, "Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest complaint, or the smallest act of charity, all of which have the potential to turn a life around." I think we have to go back to appreciating, the sun, and that it's warm today, and that it's helping me. We have to go back and grow in compassion. We have to grow in compassion toward ourselves. We need to stop being upset that we're upset. We need to recognize it's okay not to feel good right now, but that we don't have to stay there and have a pity party. We need to recognize that we want to be compassionate toward our families. After all, for the first time for a lot of them, kids, parents, and even in many cases, grandparents may be in the same house at the same time, and in a really tough situation because of this virus. And so this is an opportunity for us to begin to focus on the gifts that our family are to us and not the burden that they are. We want to think about all of the work that we do, and now more than ever, appreciate those who are out on the front lines. When we talk about all of these numbers that Joyce brought up, we need to recognize that there's a finite number of people in hospitals and grocery stores and providing those essential services that we need. And so when we are cavalierly trying to get back to what we want to do, what we're really doing is increasing the load and risk on those people. So we need to, first and foremost, kind of keep others in mind. And then I think maybe the most important thing is we have to go back to those things that are most important to us as Americans and people, that we're in this together. This is truly global world. What happened in China, happened in Europe, is happening in Africa as we speak. It's happening in South America as we speak. No one's going to be untouched by this. That's not going to happen. And what we need to recognize is what's our responsibility in the face of this? And are we willing to be mature, or are we ready to go back to the same juvenile behavior that we had when we were in high school?
I think it's interesting that you work this toward a behavioral change, new behaviors. One of the disheartening trends that I've learned through this pandemic is that in a lot of our communities, domestic violence, domestic abuse continues to rise. And it's very unfortunate because that is back to the core of the family. So my question is, how do we have mechanisms, people, services that are building family unity as opposed to behind closed doors enduring the pain of fracturing it under this cloud of the pandemic?
Well, I think it comes back to another thing that I grew up with, which is, are you your neighbor's keeper? I think when I grew up, I'm originally from Philadelphia. When I came to California, it was a little bit of a different world for me, because when I grew up, if I did something that was out of order, my neighbors were a force to be reckoned with. So, before I got home, my mom already knew what I had done. If you had a domestic violence situation, people in the neighborhood were able to call you aside and talk to you a little bit and try to get you to get some help and fix things. I think today a lot of people live in neighborhoods, they don't know who lives next door to them. And I think that's challenging, but we are our neighbors' keepers. And so we have an opportunity, again, even though we're social distancing, to reach out and share compassion with one another, to be able to reach out to those people who are, as somebody told me the other day, I got to decide to stop choosing not to be aware of trouble. I need to pay attention to what's really going on around me and help to make this a better world, if that's the culture I want. So I think at TIPS, we have counselors and therapists who can really provide services that will help those people who want to change. But we also need people who will help people want to change. Because sometimes better the devil I know than the devil I don't know. And we want to be in a better world. I think we need to look at this as an opportunity to reassess what we already do and make the changes that will create the culture that we really want to be a part of. And part of the work that I think we're trying to do through this collaborative is approach it from a preventive standpoint, approach it from a trauma management standpoint, approach it from a lifestyle and wellness standpoint, approach it from a information and informed decision standpoint, and approach it from a healthy, robust mindset standpoint. I'm not asking people to be, let's dance around the tree and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. What I am saying, though, is that we're tougher than we act like we are. We're tougher and more resilient than a lot of people give us credit for. And I think it's our opportunity to stand up and really create the life we want, the dreams that we had as kids, rather than be frustrated with the life that we chose.
So as we wrap this up, the work that TIPS is doing, particularly in the IE, which is a growing part of California, of that fabric, what behaviors do you think we need to emphasize just to sort of bring this all together? What behaviors do we need to emphasize?
I think the most important things, again, that people can do, one is see this as an opportunity to assess where they can improve themselves, whether that's in terms of taking better care of themselves physically, whether that's in terms of taking better care of themselves emotionally, whether that's in terms of improving their value to others. I listened to one of my mentors, John Maxwell, and I think we would all benefit from asking this question: how am I going to add value to myself? And how am I going to add value to others today so that this is the world that I really want to be in? So I think if we take that improvement mentality with us, if we see those things that maybe need to be improved and honestly work to improve them, and if we, the love, laughter, sharing, and caring are all free. It doesn't matter what your economic status is. You can give love. You can show someone in need what they need. You can laugh every day. You can share what you have, and you can let people know that you care. Somebody else said that people never care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I just think that that mindset is really a big, important part of this change. And I think people want real, heavy things. But I think the reality is it's a little bit like a nice summer breeze. Just embrace what's around you right now, and you'll be a happy person.
Wow. A lot of information, a lot of facts, a lot of figures, a lot of tactics, a lot of shifting in mindset. But I think these are the things that will be required for us to persevere through this pandemic, through this season, both as a country, as a state, as a region. And I want to say thank you very much, Joyce Clarke. Thank you very much, John Epps.
My pleasure.
This insight to the public forum, and continue, those of you in the audience, to pay attention to what TIPS IE is doing as we're impacting the Inland Empire. Still a growing, thriving community, still an important part of the most important state in the nation. And be aware that we're here to make an impact on improving the lifestyles of both our youth and the older generations as well. John, Joyce, thank you again.
Thank you.